Thank you so much, everybody, and so excited to be part of this winter wonderland because we are really feeling that weather today, huh? The blistering cold is sweeping through, and it's reminding me of this lovely little romantic scene of a winter in a forest. And we need some supplies to make this beautiful scene happen. You're going to need a pencil, an inch flat brush or round brush, either one will work. Something big enough for the background, and then you'll have a medium size, about half-inch round brush and a thin liner brush for the smaller details. If you're lucky enough like me to have an acrylic paint marker handy, this one has a .07 tip and it's an acrylic water-based marker. Definitely want to have one of those handy for the details. When it comes to the acrylic paint I have here today, three shades of blue. For the picture, we'll need four, so we're going to use white to help make us a different shade. But we have a bright blue, a turquoise, and an ocean breeze colors. Those are the colors that I have. Of course, when you're working with paint, you want to have a cup of water handy and some paper towels too to help dry the brush in between color changes. So to get started with the sketch is fairly simple. Um, it's just a little deer in the corner. And then we have these trees made with our liner brush that's going to pop up as we start painting. So we're going to just sketch out the main deer and then work the background after our sketch. So we don't necessarily have to draw in all these trees. We're going to freehand most of that. So we're going to be using our creativity a little bit here today. So I'm going to grab a pencil and kind of block off the bottom left quarter to fit in our little deer here. So I'm just going to create some dots just to help me with placement. So I'm taking these three dots so that I know when I'm drawing, I'm not going to pass these three dots. So that little corner is going to be for my deer. And it does seem a little intimidating if you look in the sketch, but really, if you can draw a rectangle, these are like rectangular shapes. We have a triangular shape here. So think in terms of shape and not having to take one line and just finalize and draw the picture. So to start off with, I'm going to create a horizon line just to give us a little bit of a starting point. And we're just going to take about 1 to 2 fingers from the bottom and go straight across. This is going to be mostly the bottom that's darkened in blue. So that's just going to be our starting point here, just so we have a little bit of guidance when we start our sketch. And then we want to decide how wide we want our deer. So if you look at our reference here, about 4 fingers across. So I'm going to put a dot here and a dot here, just to give us kind of an idea of how wide we want our deer. So a dot here and a dot here. Now, again, this isn't an exact measurement. It's just to kind of guess how large we're going to make this picture. So we're going to start off over here with a little curve, starting off that dot with a little curve coming straight down. And that's our starting point in the corner. This is going to be the chest of the deer here. And then this is the top of the leg. So that's that first shape that we're going to make. It's a little bit of a curve, almost like an S shape. Next, again, we're going to come in with a little bit of an angled rectangle. So it kind of has a slope. It's not straight across this rectangle. It kind of has like a little bit of a slope to it. That's the next shape. And then we'll just go ahead and create another parallel line. So we have our two front legs that came together pretty quickly. Now, when we go to the next area, we want to kind of gauge the two legs back here. So with this dot, I'm going to start creating a tail, making a triangle. So I've created a tail for the triangle. And then I'm going to curve that to create the back leg. So almost like an upside down curve. And then in between, I'm going to do another kind of triangular shape, just like so. And then create a line just like that. And we'll connect both sides with a line going curved up. And there you have the bottom of the deer legs. And you can adjust as you'd like. You can make this a little bigger, make the leg a little wider. You can look at the picture and see what makes sense to you. Editing is necessary, even with a good piece of writing. You never complete it on the first try. Edit it till it looks great. So now that we have the bottom half completed, we're going to take a chance at completing the top. And we're going to start that with creating the back for the deer, which is just a curved line. And once you get to about this part, you're going to kind of create another parallel curve line. So once you get to that middle of the leg part, you're going to curve the back and then kind of go up to create a bit of a shoulder, and then just take a little line like that for the neck. So we came up from the tail, created a rounded back. This is about two fingers width still. Kind of curved over here to create the shoulder and a little line for the neck. And we're just gonna bring this side up to match the neck on the other side. Now, this is like an elongated triangle, almost an ovalish for the ear. And then we create thinking of the letter Y, we're going to create some of these antlers. So it's almost like we're making a Y. So we have our first Y happening for the antler here. And then we're attempting another Y for the second antler. And that's going to come down to a V shape. So we kind of go out from the ear, create one Y and a secondary Y for the antler. And then we're going to curve this around and again, attempt a Y. So think of like the letter Y. Don't really try to think of, oh, I got to draw an antler. You can write a letter Y more easily. And again, an attempt at another Y. Bring that down. And then right below, once you kind of create that antler, you're going to do the elongated ear once again. And curve out a deer face. It's just like a rounded U. I'm just going to edit my ears here. Make sure they're parallel. So I have one kind of in the same height as the other, and then just a rounded kind of nose. And it's going to not be further than this first, too much further than this first leg. So as long as it's just about here where this first leg is, that's how far out you want to go with this rounded bit. And that's the hardest part of this whole picture, is just getting that shape of the deer right. And when you're painting, you can also kind of edit it with your brush and come in, kind of round out and make adjustments so you think it looks good to you. So we have the deer in our bottom left corner. And then now we're just going to get started with our larger brush. And we're going to do 4 shades total. So we're going to start off with the darkest blue. The darkest blue is going to come in. Then we'll have a medium color blue. If you have this shade only or one color blue only, you can just keep adding white to it. It will work the same. I just was lucky enough to have different shades of blue, so I'm going to use them. But you can still, take a couple of swipes of white and keep adding to it every stage so it creates a lighter and lighter shade. So you want to have a dark blue, a really dark blue. Then we have a less dark blue, a lighter blue, and then the lightest almost white kind of blue for this picture. So 4 shades in total, and we're going to get started with the darkest shade. I have my 1-inch round brush. So load that baby pretty well. And with a tapping, kind of almost stamping with a dry brush, I'm just going in just with this dryness and really concentrating on the top part of the canvas like so. So just getting that darkness happening towards the top and then slowly kind of building in the lighter colors as we move on. So just going to tap in, dry brush, and tap towards the top here. And I'm going to do the same thing now once the top is finished at the bottom. So here we are, the darkest shade. And we're coming in just at the top and the bottom. Now we're going to use this same shade to fill in the deer, but we're not going to do that just yet until we really do the building of the background. So this is really mostly just concentrating on letting each layer almost dry, creating a new shade, and then building upon the next layer. So we have this blue, we created this base. I'm gonna do a little cleanup because we want it to blend, but we want to also kind of differentiate too. So just gonna do a little cleaning and a little drying. We don't want to do too much mixing. We want to make sure that it is 2 different shades that are kind of coming through. So it's like a waiting game. So we have this area still a little shiny. You want to kind of wipe off any blobs of extra shininess just so it dries pretty quickly. Acrylics dry pretty quickly. So if it's still shiny, that just means it's still a little wet. You want to come in and just take off any excess shininess and then just kind of give it a second to start drying. And then next you can build the next color. So again, I have this shade of blue, but it is a little bit darker than I would like. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit of white. I do want a little bit of a snowier vibe. So I just want to lighten it just a bit. I don't want to keep it that super, super harsh blue. So I'm just going to lighten it just a bit with some white. I'm going to just swipe across. Anytime I'm blending, I'm just really swiping. I'm not like scooping with my brush or anything. And just taking my time and mixing it. And then just waiting for the shininess to kind of start to dissipate. So then I'm going to come in with my next layer. Now my brush was cleaned, dried, mixed it with a little bit of white with this turquoise shade. And I'm almost pressing the tips in just to create that kind of textured color and movement. And I'm not going much further down, just kind of the next section into the picture. And not only am I going to go across, but I'm just going to round out a little bit. So I'm just bringing that color down a little bit, just creating a roundness to the picture because we want this center area to be very round and very light. Just coming in with that lighter blue just here. And I'm trying to avoid painting too much of the deer, but I am getting those little blank spaces around. And again, just kind of pressing in and patting. And building in that shade. Gonna make some more of this color a little lightened up. And just pressing in. I'm just creating a little haloed curve. So I'm getting as close to the line that I drew for the deer as possible. And again, working my way. Almost pressing into the paper with the tip, not really swiping or trying to create a brush stroke, but just leaving it very textured. And shade 2 is looking good. I'm gonna clean my brush again with a swipe and a swirl at the bottom of my cup. Clean it off on the sides. Give it a good pat dry. And on to the next color. So we have this Ocean Breeze. Again, the hue is just a tad dark. I'm just going to come in, swiping with a little white. Give it a touch of that snowy lightness here. And you guessed it, we're going to start smashing in that lighter color in a bit of a curve. Coming around. Getting as close to the edges of the deer and covering these little bits of this little bit of white kind of in between the antlers here. Not putting too much, but enough that you can see your line still, so that when you come in with some darker blue, you'll be able to define the deer in the shadows. And that's what it is. It's just playing with the idea of snow and using the same shade to kind of create the idea of like a snowy little shadowy glow. Okay. So that's shade number 3. And then lastly, we'll take that bluish shade and get even lighter with it. And really fill in the center. So I'm not even cleaning my brush. I still have a little bit of this lighter blue in here. And I'm leaving it majority white. And that's going to create my 4th shade. It's going to look like almost very, very lightly tinted kind of snow. And that's going to round out this area here. I'm just continuing in sort of a circular fashion, just pressing in. And again, kind of overlapping these antlers and filling in those spaces between, but not covering it so much that I can't see the drawing. So we have this light blue. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of this page with this light blue. Very textured. You can even use a sponge or even like a paper towel scrunched up if you don't have this larger paintbrush. We'll do the same kind of technique. And just kind of bringing that whole thing in. And then another good clean will do. So once we fill up with that lightest shade, we're then going to start brightening and adding some trees in varying lightnesses. So when we add our trees to the background, there's going to be a darker tree, and then there's going to be a set of just slightly lighter tree branches. So again, this is what we have so far. This is what we have as our inspiration. So far so good. We have our base kind of on, and now we're going to add and lighten up some details. So good clean brush. Gonna get some more paper towels here. Gonna lighten and dry this one off. And now we're just gonna come in with some white. So the white is gonna start in the center and then start moving its way outward. And we're just gonna kind of make it a little piecey as we go along. So we did the 4 shades of blue, so dark, then a little darker, then a little lighter, then a little lighter. Now we're just going full-blown white and just filling in this winter scene with a bunch of lightness and brightness and just kind of going in and building this texture, going from top to bottom. So almost like trees are in the background. And here we are with this kind of light peeking through. So just coming in. Coming in and letting some of that lighter blue peek through. Just kind of going top to bottom. So we have some of the white coming down a little further here, some of the white going up a little further there, and then just continuing to build that whiteness towards the center. We want this very white and very light. So a lot of concentration on building the background and really building the layers of the forest. So once you have that center lightened and brightened, you want to go ahead and clean your big brush off. This job is done. It was working hard, getting that background together. Now we're going to use our thinner liner brush to really start making moves in this forest. Now, when creating these trees, very simple. You want your liner brush, and we're going to go ahead, if you look in our areas here, it's just a simple 3 lines, starting with a branch or trunk going straight down, and then just kind of creating a Y to it. Nothing too crazy, a little detail here. And then we have several colors. So these are going to be a lighter shade. Anything that's going to be kind of living in this white space will be a lighter shade. And then the ones towards the front will be a little bit of a darker shade. So I'm going to start off with this lighter shade. It's going to be this lightest color that we have here. So that's this oceany blue with a little white. And we don't want it too light. We do want it showing up. And depending on the thickness of your paint, you want to just dip into some water just to thin it out a little bit. Anytime you're doing any kind of lines, you want your paint to be very pliable and not watery, but almost like a creamy kind of substance. And then you can even do a tester so that if it kind of moves easily like that, you'll be able to do a good job creating the lines. So first things first, I'm going to come in right above where these antlers are and start off creating that Y, that first Y that's happening. Then I'm going to make the next one a little taller and a little longer to get towards the body. And you can add as many branches as you want. This is your picture. This is your creativity. I'm just going to go over it like so. And then I'm just going to move in this area here and just freehand another lighter tree. And don't be afraid to come back in. If I need to adjust the tree, I just go back in like so and add a branch or two. And then a little smaller as I move outward. So I'll just come here and stop a little shorter up. And you can put as many trees as you like. I'm just doing what our inspiration is showing us here. So we have that. And then next, we're going to be doing these kind of foreground trees in this darker blue. And I'm just going to keep it that same shade blue so it really pops. And again, I'm going to kind of have this one. Ooh, I'm going to swipe across and just do a little tester one. Should be good to go. So I have a little baby one kind of floating off the page. If we look at my inspiration, then we'll move into a tree that's just a little taller, but stops shorter than this one. So I'm going to take it a little shorter and then come straight from the top down and over. And you can make them as thin or as thick as you'd like. And I'm just freehanding this, kind of just creating it as I go, because why not? An easy decision for once. And then we have two more here. So this one's the kind of the largest. It's going to go into this blue here. So we'll go ahead and kind of overlap what we got going on. Bring it all the way down. And put as many branches as you'd like. If you're struggling with creating a branch, just think again, the letter Y will get you through. And we have another little tree living out there. And I feel like you should have one more, even though the inspiration doesn't call for it. I feel like one lives right there. Because why not? Has a little big of a stem. Perfect. So there we go. We've assembled our forest. We've assembled our background. Now we're almost done. We just have a couple of more steps. So now is going to be this deer here. That's going to define the picture. That's going to be done with this dark blue. So we'll take our time Starting from the top, doing the antlers. And I'm just going to turn my page just a little more comfortable for me. I'm leaning here to give my wrist a little bit of stability. And you want to just take your time. If you don't see your lines, you can always let your paint dry and always retrace or redraw over the dry paint if you need to see exactly what you're doing. But I pretty much see the lines through the paint, and I'm just going to get started with these antlers. And when I come to do these kind of smaller spaces, you definitely want a smaller brush. And I don't necessarily start here. If I've already started painting, I'll go back into the color I started and pull it down like so. And starting with the tip, I can also put my pinky down in a dry area to give my hand a little more stability. And I'm just pulling the color down and coming here to finish the job. And I'm going to see my little ear here now. And I'm just taking my time filling in the lines. And again, now's the time that if you drew it and it's a little crooked or a little off, you can edit with your brush and make your own changes. Sometimes when you glide with the brush, the line gets straighter more easily. You see the shape sizing better. And just continue to fill in. And again, this is the inspiration. If you don't remember how it looked exactly. And we're just going to work our way from the left to the right, filling our way in as we go. And filling in those antlers. And making it the thickness that you need. And just a little more of a close-up so far. So once you get that next set of antlers, and then here. And filling in the neck, giving it a bit of a shoulder and body. And a little bit of a tail. And I'm not worried about making actual legs. I'm just letting that darkness go into the background. I'm letting the shadows kind of take over that detail. So don't worry if you don't have an actual hoof at the bottom and it's just showing the legs. That's the style of the painting. And it's just coming together now pretty quickly. The hard part is letting it dry in between the layers. Because you definitely want each layer to kind of show its color. It adds to giving the depth to the forest. And then last but not least, we'll be coming in with the acrylic marker to add some snow or details, which if you add white to something and it's still wet, you do have that chance of it to still kind of mix. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not putting too much paint on or layering too much paint on. You want to give it a chance to dry quickly. If you are an impatient type of person like me, that I like to finish my projects in one sitting. So waiting for the layers to dry is not always my favorite thing. I'm going to take my medium-sized round brush and just kind of go over that body and just kind of give it a more smooth look. A lot of times with the detail brush, you can see too many lines and textures. This is just smoothing out that belly area. So, and then I'm just going to come in with this medium brush too and just really continue to darken some of the edges here. And some of the edges here. So now is a good time to take a quick little break, or if you have near you a blow dryer, that kind of thing, and let most of the shininess of the painting kind of dry. You can start practicing how to do some snowflakes on your palette while you're waiting for it to dry. So you're going to go ahead and just take your liner brush, clean it pretty well, and add a little water to it if you feel like it's very thick and not easy or pliable. And then you just kind of start doing little dots to try to create the snow effect. And that can be done with your liner brush. Another cool little life hack, a cool little trick that makes life easy and that you don't necessarily have to wait as long for your painting to dry, is you just take the back of your paintbrush like so. Just dip it into the white, just like that. And depending on the pressure, you can make a big or small little snowflake. So I'm gonna choose the easier little hack here and start from the top to bottom. And we can just start building in our little snowflakes. And this can be done with an acrylic marker too. And when you think that your snowflakes are too small, you just reload. And again, you want to just kind of do a little bit everywhere. Just kind of bounce around, almost in a zigzag like pattern. And just give it that little touch. And you're layering over everything. So don't be afraid if you're going over some white, if you're going over a piece of a tree, if you're going over a background. And just start filling it up. Do it all over. just like so. So we have the very bright white, little snowy dots coming through. And then you can even take a little of that white and mix it with the blue. And then on the white area, just so there's a little contrast, you have that little light blue kind of peeking through on the white. Just like so. Let that little bit of light middle background still look like it has some snowflakes. And then last but not least, my favorite way to make a snowflake is like doing an asterisk. So I'm going to shake my little acrylic pen here. We're going to test your corner. Nope. Needs a little more love. A shake and a pump will do the job. And so with the acrylic pen markers, you can do the same thing. You can create awesome little snowflakes that are little circles, just like our little hack for the paintbrush. It's coming along. Okay. So yeah, so when you're working with acrylic markers, you can shake and then pump, and then it'll give you a nice thin line to work with. There we are. And so you can make yourself an X with a line through it and just do a bunch of those. And you definitely want to make sure the paper underneath is somewhat dry. And then shake and a pump. And just have a little X. And it'll really pop on these darker areas. An X with a line through it. X with a line through it. X with a line through it. And again, just this little detail just adds to that magical snowiness. Just little touches like this that just give a little painting a romance, little sparkle. And just like that, our little deer is enjoying a nice little snowfall.